44 yards, Bass. No, he doesn't make it. Wide right. Wow. The two most dreaded words in Buffalo.
Good season overall, obviously not the result, the ultimate goal that we were looking to accomplish.
At the end of the season, there's one happy team, and we're going to keep fighting until we are that one team.
I'm not laying my head down tonight going, we don't have a shot at it next year.
Overall as a team, very impressed with how hard these guys work.
I think there's a different vibe at this point with this team.
I can sit here all day and say I'm confident, which I am. We got to go prove it. Talk is cheap at this point.
Welcome back to another season of Leading the Charge, and we got the gang all back together. Matt Bove, Howard Simon, Joe Buscaglia, as we get you ready for another season of Buffalo Bills football. But this year feels a little bit weird, at least from my perspective. I don't know if there is as much buzz and excitement about the outcome, not about the season. People are very excited about the season, but there's a little bit of fear. I liked how Jeremy White put it, actually, on WGR the other day. He was like, when somebody asks him about the Bills, he goes, I think they're going to be okay. And I feel a lot like that just going into this. How are you feeling as we get ready for the start of the season?
There's no question I lowered my expectations. No, not even close to the last, 3 years now. The last two for sure. Went into training camp thinking this is a legit Super Bowl contender. I am not thinking that this season. Now, it doesn't mean they can't get to the Super Bowl. It's just I think we all have to lower the expectations. It's going to be a little bit different than it was in years past. There are a lot more questions about the Bills going into the opener than we've had in the last few years. So, yeah, cautiously optimistic. I think they're still a playoff team. Do I think they're a Super Bowl contender? Not right now. Can they win the division? Yeah, but I don't think it'll be easy. That's about as far as I'm willing to go. I'm pretty confident playoff-wise. I know Joe is going to be probably Mr. Negative, but no, I'm pretty confident playoff-wise.
2 minutes in and you're already painting me as the bad.
The over-under was 2 minutes to pick on you.
And you won. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so did the viewers. They won too. Joe has been at every single Bills practice since they reported back.
Since the dawn of time.
Yeah, exactly. Since Vietnam.
I go on holidays.
I've missed, I think, 2 practices the entire summer.
Why are we doing the show with you then?
I don't know. That's a good point. I just clearly not dedicated. I think there have been days that they've looked really good. There have been days where they looked like they need a lot to work on. But the vast majority of it has been, okay, I can see where what they're trying to do. I just don't know if they're going to be able to execute it. So as we get to this point, all of the questions really, I think, at least for most people, start offensively. So Joe, when we talk about the offense, how do we feel and how does that ultimately have an impact on the whole picture of the season?
Well, from a reporter's perspective, I think what I like most about this year, specifically on offense, is that it's going to be different.
Yeah.
And defense, too, for that matter. But since we're talking about the offense, this is the first time, and I can't wait to see how this unfolds, that we're going to see Josh Allen in this role as a potential talent elevator. He hasn't had to do that at any point in his career before because he's always had Stephon Diggs there. Yeah. He's always had John Brown, Cole Beasley, and Dawson Knox kicking in when he had his big years. And certainly last year Dalton Kincaid did a little bit too. But now it's all on Josh because they've got a bunch of unproven guys in the wide receiver room. Khalil Shakir is the only guy he's ever thrown a regular season pass to out of that receiver room. Outside of that, it's Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman, Mac Hollins, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And how the heck it all unfolds, we'll have to see. And Josh gets to prove that he can ascend even more in a quarterback tier if he can become that talent elevator. Or maybe it goes backwards to where Josh is still a really good player, but they find out that they need to have that mandatory number one. So that's why, from a reporter's perspective, I'm enthralled with this year.
How do you think that plays out? Because I believe if they have success, obviously Josh will play a big factor. If they don't, I at least don't think that it's going to be mainly on Josh. I think it's going to be because they didn't surround the team with enough talent. But I think he's ready to do that. Do you agree?
Yes and no, because I want to see it because the pieces that they have are solid. They don't have any overwhelming pieces, and I've never seen him bring a player up to a grandiose degree. Now, Khalil Shakir certainly had a really nice end of the season last year, but they've always had Stephon Diggs. They've always had Gabe Davis chip in with some big games. I want to see it before I commit to it.
But can't we make the? Sorry, we're not trying to cut you
No,
off.
I'm having a good time listening.
I'm also not saying he's not. He can't do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
But I guess my counterpoint to that would be, how do we know he didn't do that with Stephon Diggs, with Gabe Davis? Because they weren't what they were until they got to Josh Allen.
And
Gabe Davis.
Kincaid had a good rookie.
Well,
I mean,
you
Gabe Davis
can also argue, chicken or the egg, whether or not Stephon Diggs or whether or not Josh Allen would have been Josh Allen with Stephon Diggs.
Absolutely.
We could do that all day.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of reasons, if you're a Bills fan, to be excited, because I think that cautiously optimistic is the word. I don't think this is a season that they punt on. I don't think this is a season where...
Don't bring up punting.
Don't bring up... Oh, I know. Huntapalooza. How long did it take for us to get to that one?
4 days.
4 days? No, I mean, like, how long into the show did it take for us to get
First
to
segment.
punting? First segment.
And there was no Puntapalooza.
Literally 5 minutes. Thank you. Into the control room. It took us 5 minutes to get to punting.
4 training camp days for it to be over.
4 training camp days. It was way too soon for Joe. He
Had
just
a
was expecting so much more.
Had charts.
Let me ask you this, though. For the reasons where I say we're cautiously optimistic, or at least I feel like I'm cautiously optimistic, where does the hint of negativity bring? Like, why does that exist?
For the offense?
Just for the entire team in general?
Oh, there's too many questions. We haven't had this many questions about the Bills going into a season in a long time.
Yeah.
2018.
Thank you very much. Wide receiver room, loaded with questions.
Yep.
Okay, running back, fine. Tight end, fine. Quarterback, fine. Offensive line, don't anybody get hurt.
Yeah.
Last year, the Bills were one of 2 teams that had same starters, every single game.
Yeah.
What are the odds it happens in back-to-back years? If anybody gets hurt on the offensive line, it's not pretty.
No.
Our depth is extremely unproven.
Got some stats for you. Between the 4 guys who are still on the active roster right now that are going to be the primary backups, 47 total snaps in regular season games between them. And all 47 of them, Ryan Vandemark. The rest of them, 0.
That's just the offense.
And that's just the offense.
That's the offensive.
We'll get to the defense,
offense.
so I don't want to jump ahead. But there are questions on that side of the ball, and now I got to worry about Tyler Bass.
How about for you? And the Tyler Bass point is a very good one. But how about for you? Where does the negativity? I mean, he brings up a lot of good points, but is there one that rises to the top?
I think the defense has a legitimate chance to take a big step back this year, because when you look at what they have this year and what they're without, I mean, even though Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde were not the same guys last year, this safety position has gone from above average to possibly pretty bad. Taylor Rapp, I was not impressed by in his spot duty last year and when he chipped in as a third safety. And then the free safety position is like, what the heck is going to happen there between Mike Edwards, who has barely practiced and is in his first year in the defensive scheme, Cole Bishop, who's in his first year period and has barely practiced within the defensive scheme, and then DeMar Hamlin, who is mostly based as a strong safety that has been moonlighting as a free safety because everyone else has been injured. So that's a big thing that we're going to have to keep an eye on as the season goes along. The pass rush, I have major questions about. Greg Rousseau seems like he's ready to take the next step, but who besides him is going to be able to do it? And oh, by the way, Matt Milano is injured.
Yeah.
And he's going to be out for a lot of the season, if not all of it. We don't know. Brandon Beane would not commit to anything today. So I think for them, that's a lot of stuff. And when you replace Milano with Dorian Williams, you replace Poyer with Taylor Rapp, you replace Hyde with whoever. It might be a little hairy.
Okay, so that is some of the conversation with the defense, but I want to specifically talk more about the defense coming up on the other side of the break, because I do think that there is a point to be made that, like, Sean McDermott has to get the most out of this group. That is why you have a defensive-minded head coach. So coming up on the other side, we will talk more about the defense, and then later, we promise, we will get to our season predictions and tell you what we think the records are going to be. Howard and Joe have been thrilled about this since I told them we were doing it. The highlight of every show. Don't go anywhere. You're watching our season preview episode of Leading the Charge right here on 7 ABC.
Leading the Charge is brought to you by Kubota. Together, we do more.
Welcome back, everybody. We spent a lot of time in the first segment talking about the offense, because understandably so. That has been probably the biggest talking point from the time that they got to training. Well, no, from the time that they traded Stephon Diggs in March. We did a Zoom call together that day, and it was like, did they trade him in April or March?
March.
I think it was
March. I was driving to Florida. It was March.
Okay, so it was like right at the end of March, and it was right before the draft, and we were like, the sky is falling.
Or that was the day they cut everybody.
Yeah, I was like, what in the world is this team going to do? The only thing they've really done since then would be Curtis Samuel, Matt Collins. No, that was all before. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and then draft. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going off on a tangent. Defense. We're talking about the defense. Why should I be optimistic and why should I be concerned? You talked a little bit about the concern before. Give me a reason to be optimistic about the defense.
I really like Christian Benford. I think he has the potential to really hammer down and become their future #1 cornerback on the team. I think the combo of his skill set combined with Rasul Douglas is a really good one for this starting unit, and the Bills are going to need to depend on their cornerbacks, which is ridiculous to think about because this time last year was such a huge question mark. But now you have Rasul Douglas, who came in at the trade deadline. He's been their risk taker and big play guy. Christian Benford is just Mr. Consistent. You know where he's going to be. He always knows where to be in the scheme, keeps everything in front of him, breaks up passes, and then Taron Johnson as well, the nickel. I mean, that trio of guys needs to really lead a lot for this defense. But I really like Benford. I think he has a chance to ascend to be their #1 for the long.
And Jamarcus Ingram has looked good too. He's a player that you like a lot as a depth option, right? Yeah.
Jamarcus Ingram and Kaiir Elam are both battling for that #3 cornerback role. I don't know who is going to win it for week 1 of this season, but it's something to keep an eye on once one of those guys go down with an injury.
You see that? Joe's being positive.
What was the over-under on that?
I've never really worried about the defense because there was always Josh Allen in the offense, right? Never had. Don't worry about it. They have to score 30. They'll score 30. So I never stressed out about the defense. Now I think the offense is going to take a step back. Maybe as the season plays out and he gets to know the receivers and the line's okay. Remember, there are 2 guys at different starting spots on the offensive line from last year. Maybe that all shakes out eventually and they'll be fine. But I think they'll have to rely on the defense more than they have had to do in the past few years. I don't think the defense is up to that right now. There are questions at safety. I think the cornerbacks are actually my reason for optimism on the defense.
I was going to say, it might be one of their strongest positions on the entire team.
Now, you can make the case in terms of pass rush. I know what you said, but you still have Ed Oliver. Rousseau's a stud.
Yeah.
Von Miller will not be vintage Von Miller, but Von Miller should be better than last year Von Miller. Okay. So,
okay.
I believe I got it. Okay.
Cut to Joe.
Anyway, I don't think the defense can carry this team while the offense might be going through growing pains. So I'm not optimistic about the defense, not at the start of the season.
Von Miller, you winced a little bit.
Well, I think it doesn't take a lot for him to do better than his 0-sack season from a year ago.
Right. He's got to just get something.
But I think if people have the expectation that he's going to be the starting defensive end, not you.
No, that's what I say. He's not old Von Miller.
Right. If people have that expectation, that's not his role in the defense anymore.
Right.
He is going to be a rotational pass rusher. He's going to get 20 to 30 snaps a game, if that, and they're going to try and keep him fresh and keep him going because, honestly, this is probably going to be the last year of Von's career in Buffalo because they were financially attached to him, and they had to keep him. And he took a pay cut, just out of the goodness of his heart. But Miller, he is not the same guy anymore. And if they get like a 5-sack season out of him, that's a win.
That's good. And that's all I'm counting on.
Yeah.
But and other optimism. Okay, Terrell Bernard is still here.
Yep.
And the whole thing. Look, I'm not underplaying Milano being out. That's a huge loss. But they're used to it. Okay. What did he play? 5 games last year? 4 or 5 games?
Yeah, 4 and a half.
And he's been injured in the past. So it's not like they have not tried to do life without Matt Milano before.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Dorian Williams is.
I'm going to counterpoint that after you say something.
Okay. Well, the one thing I was going to say is the 3 players who I was most impressed with when we were at training camp, even though I missed those 2 days, Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, and Taron Johnson.
Yeah.
Every single day, those 3 guys were great. And I think those 3 guys can take over a game. They're game changers. It's just, can everybody else just kind of stay afloat? I trust the corners. Linebackers, I got some questions about. What were you going to say?
What I will say about the replacement of Milano and why it's different this year as opposed to last year's, because last year the Bills had the flexibility to kind of change up their defense on passing downs, which they don't have this year.
They won't do it. They don't have like a third safety or somebody to try and help out.
They might not even have a first safety. That's the reason why, like Dorian Williams, he's going to go through some growing pains.
And he's not Milano.
In the start, no, absolutely not. And he struggles with play action. A lot of what Tyrell Dodson did last year, but Dorian's a little bit faster and quicker and more agile. It's just a matter of, can they mask those growing pains enough?
Right.
Or do they eventually turn to a guy like Balin Spector to try and keep those mistakes out of the lineup, even though they're ceding some athleticism? There's just a lot of questions right now, and on third down specifically.
All right. Other side of the break, we are going to talk about the guys who we think are on the verge of breakout seasons, and then, of course, we're going to end with predictions because that's what we do. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Leading the Charge right here on 7 ABC.
And hey, a very special birthday from all of us here at Leading the Charge to Regina DeLuca of Niagara Falls, who is turning 100 years young today. We know you had a big party this weekend, but happy birthday, and we wish you all the best.
Welcome back, everyone. We're talking about breakout players. Last year it was Terrell Bernard, and then, 6 years ago it was Josh Allen. That guy ended up being pretty good. Who is our breakout player this year? Who do we think is going to really flash? Howard, start with you.
It's kind of unfair because he was really good as a rookie, but I'll go Dalton Kincaid. I loved everything I saw about him last year, and to me, I think he's ahead of Dawson Knox. I think he's got great chemistry. He's got great hands. He's just a fantastic offensive weapon. It's entirely possible he leads this team in catches this season because of who knows what's going on with the wide receiver group. I think Kincaid's a huge part of this passing offense.
All right, Joe, what do you got?
I'm not going to cheat and use Christian Benford again.
Yeah.
So I'll stay on the defensive side of the ball and go with rookie Javon Solomon, the fifth-round pick.
That's a fun one.
I think he's got some real pass rushing juice. And I don't know how big his role is going to be early on in the season, but I think he's one of those guys as they start to filter him in a little bit more, he's going to start to flash. This is a guy who looks small, like 6'1", 245 pounds or so, super long arms, huge hands, and he uses that and a lot of upper body strength, and he uses to punch through the offensive tackle. So he's someone to keep an eye on, number 56.
I got a little bit of a spicy one. I don't know if either of you guys would have picked this.
Josh Allen?
No, not Josh Allen. I'm going to go Ray Davis. I think Ray Davis has a very significant role on this team. I think of how many times last year we watched the Buffalo Bills passing to Latavius Murray, and you'd wince. Well, this year those passes are going to go to Ray Davis, and what he's shown in the preseason and training camp is that he's got pretty good hands. He can make plays in the passing game. So I think Ray Davis is going to have a nice role. I think he's going to be a short yardage back, and I also think he's going to be somebody who they use in the passing game, which is definitely something they need, because you know which running back struggles at catching the ball?
Are you talking about James Cook?
James Cook. Ray Davis, I do not think will have those same
He's going to be a factor in the passing game. I know he had his troubles, but he's going to be a factor.
Well, they need him to be, because for somebody who is considered an upper tier running back, they need to clean a little bit of that up.
Maybe not a red zone guy, but he'll be a pass catcher.
All right, well, that's good. I think that's why Joe is just so glowingly optimistic about the season this year.
Wait till the pick
And you're
segment.
going to hear how he
Watch me have a better record for them than Bova.
Oh my God, it could totally happen. Well, that's why you can't change the channel. Maybe that does happen. Predictions on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Leading the Charge, and Joe is going to shock the world.
I was going to turn out.
Now, for the record, 2 of the 3 of us were exactly right last year. Joe and I both had the Bills finishing 11-6.
Yeah, whatever.
And it took until the last game of the year, but they did finish 11-6. So we will get to our predictions momentarily, but we lead things off with our colleague Dom Tippett, who might be the most optimistic of all of us.
Guys, here's the thing. In the words of recently departed wide receiver Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, Josh Allen, Josh Allen. As long as 17 is under center and healthy for the Buffalo Bills, he's going to find ways to win you more games than he loses at this point in his career. Now, the central theme on both sides of the ball, really throughout this entire team, growing pains. There's going to be a ton of them. And I think defensively, you look at the defensive line having to step up, being that it's the best unit on this team, they're going to have to fill the void left behind by the linebacker group without Matt Milano, some decent secondary work, and then whatever the safety room looks like, they're going to have to fill the void, fill the gaps there, and make big plays for this defense that gets Josh Allen and the offense back on the field. Listen, I think I've got a record that Bills Mafia is going to be pretty happy with. Give me 11-6. Everything goes according to plan. I think you need to be pretty happy with that record.
Dom goes 11-6. Howard, I'm going to go to you because I feel like, I want to leave the suspense for Joe at the end.
Okay, so look, I think they make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think they will win their division. Honestly, that's a little bit less about the Bills are still clearly the best team, a little bit more about I don't believe that much in the Dolphins and the Jets, and the Patriots suck. So I'm going to look at this and go with, I'm with Dom. They're going to be growing pains. I think it'll play out a little bit like last year. They'll be better at the end of the season as opposed to the beginning. Also, that is a brutal stretch, the first month and a half of a schedule. If they can get through like 3-3, I'm good with that. I will say when all is said and done, 10-7 gets them the division title and into the playoffs.
What is your prediction?
I'm gonna have them going 10-7.
What?
Wow.
Well,
okay, that was you. Wow. You really portrayed
I was expecting doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Just because I think there are legitimate questions doesn't mean I think this is a team that's going to bottom out. I think Sean McDermott's a really good regular season head coach, and he proved that. Like one of his best seasons to me was 2018 when they had a horrible roster and they went 6-10 somehow that year.
Yeah.
I think this year they're going to start off poorly. I wouldn't be surprised if they started off 2-4 because of that horrible stretch that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to win the division this year. I think the Jets are legit. But that said, I think heading into the postseason, I might have said this to you before, Matt, I think the Bills will be the best of the AFC East teams heading into the playoffs because they'll have been able to go through those growing pains, everything along those lines. So I like their end of season schedule a lot more than their early season schedule. I think they can get to 10-7 and get a wild card.
Okay, for me, I'm between 10-7 and 9-8. I've been going back and forth on this. I think they're too talented. Josh Allen is too talented to be a guy that finishes just one game over 500. But I do think there are holes in the roster otherwise. Because of Josh Allen, I will go with 10-7, just because I think I give that guy the benefit of the doubt. I agree with Joe. I think the division is going to be a much tougher task this year. The thing I'll say about the Bills, and this is going to be how we close out the show, regardless of how they finish, if they get into the playoffs, they can go on a run because they have Josh Allen. And if you have Josh Allen, I think you've always got a chance, and that's what we're going to see this year. So that is our first episode of Leading the Charge. Thank you for watching, everybody. That's Joe Buscaglia. That's Howard Simon. I'm Matt Beauvais. For Dom Tibbetts, thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next week after week 1 and the Cardinals come to town.